machines, which I will share with you in some time. But before that, just give me a thumbs up if you're back from the break. Give me a heads up of how many of us are around. Like I said, if we have more than 15 people, we will divide ourselves into two groups and we will perform the case study. Thank you. I have 17 as of now, which means we will go with 8 group in one, 7 in one, and then 8 in another. So let's go forward. Just give me a minute. It's going to be a quick next for us because most of the content we've already covered. The only thing which we haven't looked into is your Azure functions versus the logic apps. Which one do you use when? So we saw this flowchart. The topics which we have discussed so far were related to the infrastructure like Azure virtual machines, Azure Batch. We have looked into app service. We haven't talked about this. We talked about containers. This is where the on-demand delivery of containers come into play, which is through Azure Container Instances. Then we have talked about Kubernetes. We haven't talked about the service fabric because this is more relevant to the DevOps stack where you need a full .NET integration for your application. Design for Azure virtual machine solutions. So the first point that you need to understand, this is where Vijay's question came into play, right? Hey, when will I decide? What are the controls that I need to look into? Number one, I told him that, hey, if you need an operating system level control, if you need control over your application, runtime environment, go with it. At any given point of time, if you want to run a legacy application on the modern hardware, which is where we are moving your application to cloud, go with virtual machines, right? If you want to integrate third-party solutions with your virtual machines, you need to have control, right? So that's where this comes handy. Extending your on-premise data center using specialty hardware such as high-performance compute, quickly test and troubleshoot different configurations to make sure which one fits your need and the build, right? Quickly migrate applications to cloud with virtual machines, fully control the compute environment. All these are points that needs to be considered when you are looking forward to use virtual machines as your compute solution. What should I design first? Start with your network. Why? If you remember, when you want to deploy your resource in the cloud, the first thing is you have to create an isolated environment. This is where your VNet comes into play. VNet is one large network. We divide this network into segments. So this is where your subnets come into play. Inside that subnet is where your virtual machine comes and sits. You can configure firewall for this guy, VNet, and you can configure NSG for your subnets. And NSG can also be configured at your VNet level. So start with the network. Name the virtual machine, decide the location. If you remember, depending upon the location, we were able to choose the network. So these are interrelated. Select the storage, operating system, how you want to update the virtual machine operating system. So this is where the management tab came into play, monitor. We have talked about how you want to collect information from your virtual machine, like do you want to troubleshoot crash? You want to collect the crash dumps. So how do you want to store them? Do you want to configure your own storage account or do you want to go with platform managed storage account? Things like that. And also about the alerts. And then I've also shown you how you can monitor the virtual machines through the virtual machine insight option available to you under Azure Monitor. We've already talked about this, different types of virtual machines depending upon your budget and depending upon your requirement, you will choose the right size. Size is what we call it as SKU. And then we have the concept of virtual machines and scale set. Virtual machines are standalone deployment of your resources. Scale sets. Virtual machines behind a load balancer. So that's what a scale set is. So tomorrow, when the traffic increases, you can auto scale your environment. See here, you need to add virtual machines for changing workload. Scale sets, automatic. Auto scaling capabilities are included. Group of virtual machines, it's a manual process. You need to balance and distribute workloads. It's a manual process. Scale sets will automatically do that through a help of an Azure load balancer, which is a layer 4 load balancer, or application gateway, which is a layer 7 load balancer. You need high availability and redundancy. You need to create availability sets and availability zones. The concept of availability set is distributing a group of virtual machines across multiple data centers within a region. The concept of availability zone is distributing a set of virtual machines across multiple regions. So this is what we have. Then we are talking about you need to monitor and then scale your virtual machines. Manual job for a group of virtual machines, auto scaling capabilities included with scale sets. So this is what we have. Give me a thumbs up if you're following me. Batch solutions, we have already talked about it. If you have an enterprise level, large scale environments where you want to run your application in parallel, go with HPC batch jobs, which is where Azure batch comes into play. Compute intensive workloads can be integrated, create and manage jobs in a pool of compute nodes, right? Azure batch can also install the application that you want to run and schedule jobs to run. This is where we have talked about the basic definitions. What is a job? What is a task? Then the 6 steps, which we've already discussed. I've already included those 6-step answers in the whiteboard for you. Terms, nodes basically refer to the virtual machines where your jobs are scheduled. Pool generally represents a group of virtual machines which are working together. Jobs are the tasks that you have grouped together to get executed. Example, an ETL process, or example, a 3D rendering, image processing service. Or it could also be another example like Monte Carlo simulation, right? So all of these are engineering simulations. All these are few examples where your Azure batch can come handy. App services, we already talked about this. App service is a HTTP-based service that lets you build and host your application. We have talked about different type of applications. It can be a mobile backend, it can be an API-based application, it can be a web application, or it can be your background jobs as well. You can use the programming language of your choice. This is where we've said, hey, we are not limited to .NET or Java. It can be .NET Core, it can be Java, it can be Ruby, it can be Node.js, it can be PHP, or it can be Python. Automatically scale and make it highly available because it's integrated with your app service plans. App service enables automated deployments from GitHub, DevOps, Azure DevOps, and other control service environments. For example, when we are talking about mobile applications, you can execute custom backend logic and get native support from iOS, Android, Xamarin, and reactive native applications. Considerations, determine the appropriate app service plan because app service plan determines the amount of resources that you will be providing for your application to run. Use built-in authentication and authorization capabilities, build REST APIs accordingly to be integrated with your web apps. Use app service deployment slots for continuous deployment. Deployment slots, if you remember, we have said multiple versions of your phone can run side by side. Use the mobile apps to build a backend for your iOS and Android apps. Use web jobs to run a program or a script. All these are few considerations for your app service. A quick comparison between containers and virtual machines. We've already discussed this. They are similar. Why? Because they do the same thing. Abstract, pool, share, consolidate. Virtual machines does it at the hardware level. Containers does it at the OS level. First point is lightweight because OS is not included. It's just the package which includes your application and your binary files. Runs the operating system in a user mode portion, whereas here the complete operating system. It is deployed using container runtime engine, software like Docker. Here you will rely on Azure Portal or Hyper-V as an hypervisor, or if I'm talking about on-premise, you can even go with VMware ZSX or Linux KVM. Persistent storage is offered to everyone, disks and file shares. Here we are going with virtual hard disk or a file share. Fault tolerance is offered serving a web application and a container pulling the latest content from source control is a simple example, right? A front-end container and a back-end container. I can put this together in a container group. So pros, fast and easy, used for testing and development, used for short-lived processes, can be used with Azure Container Kubernetes service. Sorry. Cons, does not scale, not designed for microservices, which means I don't have any orchestration layer which can take care of my health. So this is where we bring in AKS, Azure Kubernetes Service. We already talked about what is Kubernetes through the whiteboard. It's a portable, extensible, open source platform for automating the deployment, scaling, and management of your container-based workloads. That's what Kubernetes does. What is AKS doing? It allows you to host Kubernetes environment in Azure and makes it simple to deploy and manage containerized applications. Self-healing, dynamic scaling, rolling updates. So this is where Vijay's question also come into play, right? So these are the things that we have. Factors why I should go with Azure Kubernetes Service, because integrated identity and security management, which means I can integrate with Azure Active Directory with ease. Automatic cluster node and pod scaling, right? Virtual network support, ingress with HTTP application routing support. All these are few things which comes into play with AKS. How do I design a highly available container solution? AKS is the answer. So you can have AKS, which provides high availability using multiple nodes in a multiple virtual scale set deployments behind the screen. All you have to do is choose the region, availability, paid region, and service availability. So these are the factors. You can synchronize the storage between these clusters through infrastructure-based asynchronous replication or application-based asynchronous replication. Then finally, we have Azure Functions. What are Azure Functions? Function as a service. You might have heard this term before. Function as a service. Now, what do they do? They are serverless solution. What do you mean by serverless? Execute code on demand. This is what they do. Execute code on demand, which means if you want, if there is a particular event generated, what I can do is I can execute a code for that particular event. For example, let's say I use Lazada or Flipkart in India, right? I purchase a product. Now I want to leave a review. I uploaded some photos and then a video to review the product. And then I gave a 5-star. Now automatically there should be a response from Lazada saying that thank you for sharing your feedback. And then maybe here is a discount coupon for your next shopping, something like that. I can do that automatically with Azure Functions. Another example, Azure Functions can also be used for credit card conversions. For example, I have a Standard Chartered credit card here in Singapore, which is an SGD. When I use this credit card in India for e-commerce websites like Amazon or Flipkart, it has to basically convert SGD into INR, right? That conversion can also be automated through function as a service, Azure Functions. So whenever you hear the term serverless, example AWS Lambda or Fargate or Google's Cloud Function or Apache's OpenWhisk, all of these are some correlated solutions which you have in market. Just give me a thumbs up if you're following me, people. What is Azure Function is what I'm trying to highlight here. Wonderful. So let's go forward. So Azure Function is a serverless application platform for compute on demand, which means in order to execute a code, you need resources, CPU, memory, network, and storage. So I'll just deploy a container, run, execute that code. Once the execution is done, delete the container. Supports a microservice design, promotes code reuse, scales easily, and it is event driven, which means only when a particular event is generated, these codes, which are nothing but functions, are executed. So give me some examples. I just gave you an example of notifications in e-commerce website, right? For notifications, I can use Azure Functions. Another example that I can think of is scheduling tasks and messages. I can go with Azure Functions. Then we are talking about computing, backend calculations, backend jobs. I can go with Azure Functions. application called SoundCloud, which is like Spotify, right? This allows me to upload music to the internet, to this application, and then share it for free with others, right? Let's say I'm using this application, which is a mobile application, and then I just upload a song. When I upload a song, I can trigger an Azure function to check, is this an MP4 format? Is this within the size that I've recommended? For example, if I say the maximum size that you can upload is 10 MB, is this within that size, right? And then do I have details about the artist? Example. All these checks can be done with an Azure function. Once the checks are done, what am I going to do? I'm going to store it in my storage, saying that, hey, I have a new song now. And I'm going to update my database as well with an entry. Hey, on this particular day, this particular user uploaded this song, and this song is validated already. After that, what I'm going to do? I can run another function to trigger a notification, saying that, hey, subscribers, we have a new song uploaded. You can listen to it right now. Give me a thumbs up if you're following me, if you're understanding how Azure functions can come into play when we are talking about a simple mobile application. Thanks, Vijay. Thanks, Babita. Thank you, others. Then we have Logic Apps. Now, what is Logic Apps? Again, Logic App is also a serverless platform. Abhi, already have Azure function. Why would I go with Azure Logic Apps? Now, Azure function is where code first approach is taken, which means you must know your code because the function itself is a code block, right? Logic App, on the other hand, works on no code formula, which means, hey, if I'm not a developer, if I can't write a code, but if I want to have a serverless platform through the help of workflows, that's why the icon also is of a workflow. Then you go with Logic App. So what are workflows? Workflows are step-by-step processes that integrates your application with data or other services and systems. So this is what we do. So give me an example of it. In an e-commerce website, when you place an order, there are multiple stages, right? Stage 1 is to browse the gallery, add the items to your cart, check out the cart, pay for your items, and then behind the screen things will start. For example, updating the stellar, packaging of the item, shipment of the item, reaching the source airport, clearing the customs, reaching the destination airport, clearing the customs, reaching the sorting center. Then we are talking about going to the delivery department, then out for delivery. So if you see, there are multiple stages. All these stages interconnection can be done through Logic Apps. So people would ask sometimes, hey, can I use Azure functions within Logic Apps? The answer is yes. Again, same example. Within this multiple stages of e-commerce website, one stage I can configure for your currency exchange, and that step can be executed through Azure functions. So people use Azure functions and Logic Apps together as well. So here, Logic App is a cloud-based platform creating and running workflows. That's the first thing that you need to remember. It can be used to send notifications. It can be used to route and process customer orders across on-premise systems and cloud services. Move, upload files from an FTP server to Azure storage. Monitor tweets, analyze sentiment. Example, have you observed whenever you go to applications like Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook, or Lazada, if you have browsed a product or visited a particular seller's site, time and again you get notifications on that product, even if you don't want to. So that's exactly what we're talking about. So a quick differentiation between Azure functions and Logic Apps is what you're seeing. Logic Apps, designer first approach. Functions, code first approach. Method here is by editing the configuration files. Here it is by writing the code, creating durable functions. Connections, which means integration with other solutions, is through something called connectors. Here, we again write a code for custom bindings. Monitoring can be done through Azure Portal, Monitor Logs. Azure Application Insights is what we need. Execution constant, only runs in the cloud, runs anywhere. whether it is a hybrid environment or a cloud environment. And that, my friends, bring us to the end of lecture for game 1. Any questions before I start creating team channels or 2 teams? Divide the people into 2 teams and then ask you guys to start with the discussions. How is it gonna work? So before I create the teams, let me show it to you. But before that, let me pause here for 10 seconds and let me see if you guys have any questions. Any questions, guys? Just give me a thumbs up if you're following me so far. Thanks, Vijay. I know a few people said they have some commitments and then they're going to step away. That's all right, understandable. But keep in mind, there is no hands-on. Follow the instructions, do the lab kind of thing for AZ-305. It's more group discussions. So my ask of you would be, try to get back to those discussions, participate actively, and do share your results. So every day from 2:30 to 4:30, we will be doing the group discussions depending upon the case study timing. Being day 1, I'll give you more time, 1 hour approximately for each of the case study. At 4:30, we will do the reviews. We'll bring up the solutions, and then we will see the do's and don'ts, what you did right, and why would it work, why wouldn't it work. So these are the things which we're going to discuss. So without any further delay, I understand, Pratik. If you are missing, that's fine. I understand. It's just that you will be only receiving the the case study document on day 4. But for today, we will just share the whiteboard with you all. Okay? Just have an eye on this chat box once you're done with this. So now, let me launch my Teams here real quick. Create 2 meeting groups. I'm going to call this as 51632. So we have the teams created. Let me share the links with you all. And let me also divide the number of people into 2 teams. But the count is 14. You guys tell me, do you want to go with 2 teams or do you want to go with 1 team? If it's single team, we don't have to join those links at all. Like I said earlier, if the count is more than 15, we would go with 2 teams. Again, I have few of the folks who's gonna run out. So let's go with a single theme for today. Okay, what do you say, guys? Just give me a thumbs up if you all are okay to continue discussions within the same teams. All of you have presenter rights, which means any one of you guys can lead the discussions. Thanks, Gwen. Thanks, Richard. Thanks, everybody. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to show you how things work for the first case study. Okay? Governance solution, right? I've just given you the links in the chat. So the first step is you have to copy these requirements and tasks to a Word document. Okay, because this is the first case study, I will give you some answers as well, but let's do this as a group. First case study number 2. Okay, so I'm just going to launch a Word document. And then I'm going to paste it. Then just one person will lead the discussions, right? Every day I want that person to be a different one. So, or the same person can lead the discussion. It completely depends on your experiences, right? So like I said earlier this morning, you guys would be taking up the role as a cloud solution architect for a company called Tailwind Traders. So you are going to recommend solutions for these guys. They've asked your assistance with recommendations and questions, right? So they are talking about their company, cost and accounting. Tailwind Traders has 2 main business units. So one is called as apparel, the other one is called as sporting goods. Each of these business units consists of 3 departments. So product development, marketing, and sales. Each business unit will be responsible for tracking the Azure spend. At the same time, the enterprise IT team will be responsible for providing company-wide cost reporting. New development project. The company has a new development project for customer feedback. The CFO wants to ensure all costs associated with the projects are captured. For the testing phase, workload should be hosted on a lower cost virtual machine. The virtual machine should be named to indicate that they're part of the project. Any instances of non-compliance with resource constituency rules should be automatically identified. So now let's pause here. Before even we look into the tasks, let's pause here. Let's understand what we can do with this. Now, first question to you guys. How would you track the expenditure of each department? The first question is, how would you track the expenditure for each department? Vijay, I see that you have raised your hand.
We'll make individual of them as subscription.
Wonderful. So there are 2 ways of doing it. One way is to have a dedicated subscription model which allows you to create cost report per subscription. This is one way of doing it, right? Other way is relying on tags and using resource groups in shared subscription model. So what I'm trying to highlight here is it completely depends on how you're organizing your structure. Both ways are correct. Now remember, one offers isolation, the other one offers flexibility. With respect to cost, both are going to cost you the same thing. Why? Because at the end, whether it is a single subscription or multiple subscription, it is a total amount of resources that you are deploying. Does it make sense? Give me a thumbs up if you're following me so far. Okay. And then how in Azure, then we will create a cost report. And then we can rely on tagging to go per department, or we can create a cost report per subscription, right? Now, company-wide Azure cost reporting, which means irrespective of department, what I can do, I can go with, for company-wide, I can go with the top level. The moment you say company-wide, the first thing that comes is top level management group. I can configure reports targeting the top level management group. That will give me a company-wide Azure cost reporting. New development project. The new development project for customer feedback is what they are trying to do. CFO wants to ensure all costs associated with the project are captured. Again, I can rely on reports, I can rely on tags. The new tag can be something called new project, and then all the resources will be tagged with that tag called new project. And then while creating a report, I can just filter the resources with the tag. That will give me a complete report on the new project cost. For the testing phase, workload should be hosted on lower cost virtual machine. Now the question to you guys is, how would you ensure that only the lower cost virtual machines are selected for creating virtual machines? What service did we discuss which can help you in this scenario? VM selector is a tool to select the operating system, is a tool to select the right virtual machine. Is a tool which tells you the details about the cost factor. That's not the question. How will you make sure, let's say, there is D series, F series, N series, E series, right? Customers can choose anything from the drop down. How will you make sure that if they choose F series, it should not allow them to finish?
The policy, right? We can define.
Exactly. Like Roshan says in the chat box, defining policies. So you can go with policies here. So that's the option that you need to understand. With policies, you can define or restrict the scope that's available to you. If you go back to the cloud, which we opened this morning, go back here, go to home, go to policy, go to definitions, search with the keyword size. Here, allow virtual machine size SKUs. So this is the policy which will enforce only the SKUs that you have allowed will be allowed to be deployed. For example, I would say only allow DS2, nothing else. Then all the validation check will fail. Does it make sense? Everybody following me? Similarly, within the same policy definitions, I can search for tag. If a tag is missing, inherit a tag from the subscription if missing, or add a replace tags on resources, add a tag to resource if it's missing. I can use any of these policies. Must have a tag on a resource. I can configure multiple policies, which means if you don't define a tag, it won't even allow you to click finish. The virtual machine should be named to indicate that they are part of the project. Again, tagging would help in this scenario. Any instance of non-compliance with resource consistency rules should be automatically identified. Again, compliance page from your policies would give you this. Now let's understand the tasks. What are the different ways tailwind traders could organize their subscriptions and management groups? This is where we are talking about shared versus dedicated. So you have to draw a diagram. A simple diagram would be something like this. I can write tailwind traders. We go next page up. I can write tailwind traders. This one is a management group. Then I'll create two groups. What was it? Yeah, transporting goods. Apparel and sporting goods, I can have 3 departments each. These 3 departments can be again a management group. And within these management groups, I can have subscriptions. And within subscription, I'll have a resource group. Within resource group, I'll have a resource. So this is one design. So like this, I want you to work on the other design. Okay? There's a free tool available online which allows you to draw stuff. So let me search for the tool. I mean, generally, if you are an architect, you will rely on something called Visio. Okay, this is the tool. Check out the chat box. I've given you the link. When you go bring that up, this is the page that will come to Azure Online Diagram Tool. Click on Make an Azure Diagram. That will launch a new tab, Preparing. So we are talking about management groups. Search for management groups. So now you know how management groups look like. This is a management group icon. So first management group is tailwinds. Then I have the two departments. Sorry. Then within each business unit, I have three departments. Okay. I can bring in a new project here. So bring text. So just highlight and then drag and drop. See here, when you highlight, you'll get the arrows. That just drag and drop those arrows to the resource. So this is how you will draw stuff, guys. So here, the text box. Where is the text box? Win traders. Apparels. Sporting goods. Then the departments, you can write it down here. Then you can go with subscriptions. Search to the keyword subscription. Subscription looks like a key, right? Each department can have its own key. This is where we are talking about dedicated subscription model. And then after this, you can have your resource groups. So resource groups look something like this. And then finally, you can have your resource. Example, SQL. Azure SQL. Does that make sense how we are doing this? People following me? So basically, you will use a tool like Visio, but this is a free tool that can be utilized. I won't be much worried about your drawing skills because this is just a test environment, because this is a training. If you use this tool, it's good for your practice. If you don't use it, I'm okay with that. Okay? So when we go back to the Word document here, the first thing they're asking is, what are the different ways traders could organize their subscription and management groups? This is where I've shown you. The one which I've shown you was dedicated. How would a shade look like? You design it. Then what are the different ways traders could track cost? So add some pointers, whichever points that we have discussed. So at the end, we will have the answer. So this is what we do. Whatever points that you have collected as a group, you will present these points when we come back for the review session at 4:30 p.m. Every day, we're going to do this. 2:30 p.m. to approximately, we will give 45 minutes to 80 minutes, depending upon the case study and depending upon the number of case studies that we have. Today, we only have two because this is day one. I'm giving you 1 hour each, but because answer, that's half answer. We can give less time to that. Okay, 4:15 is what we're gonna come back to this room. I mean, I'm gonna come back. I'm not gonna assist you during your discussions. So every day, one person should step up and then lead the discussions, like I've done. Copy the requirements, highlight the areas of focus, answer the questions, and then draw a diagram. This is what you do. Not every case study requires you to have a diagram, but it is recommended for you to bring a logical diagram, because diagrams really help a lot for an architect, because every time you're going to talk to different stakeholder, and you can't just show them pointers, right? You have to show them the logical diagram as well. Give me a thumbs up if you're following me so far. Good. So this is where I will hand it over to you guys. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Any one person, okay, who wants to step up can start leading the discussions. Any one person. If you want to take a small break first before you get started, I'm okay with that. Maybe we can start at 3 p.m. Take a small 10 minutes break. Take a 10 minutes break. And start with your discussions by 3 p.m. Okay, I'll just keep wondering. Give me like 5 minutes, I'll export the whiteboard and share it with you all right away. So whiteboard link for day one is in the chat box. Can somebody please download that, open it with OneNote and confirm if it's working for me?